The Skoda Enyaq has just had some updates. So now it's got a new look, along with a few tweaks inside, and an even longer range. But is it enough to solve this car's one big problem? Keep watching till the end to find out. And if you want to see lots more new car reviews like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel. So let's go through these changes in more detail now. And you might have noticed that last year the Enyaq did have a few tweaks to its lineup, but this now is a more obvious facelift for a car that's been around for about 5 years. And at the front end, you can see it does have a very different look from before. So this now has what Skoda calls its tech deck face, which essentially gives it this black, glossy plastic at the front end that houses some different sensors behind it. And you've also got this fancy headlight design with these split LED daytime running lights and the main headlights below. There are new alloy wheel designs to choose from, ranging from 19 to 21 inches in size, and there's also a new olive green paint colour. Anyway, these changes at the front end have also meant that this car is apparently more aerodynamic than it was before, and that means it's got an even longer official range. But we're not talking huge differences here. It's around 10 to 15 miles on top of what you could get previously. And so that means that the Enyaq 85, which is the version of this car with the biggest battery, now has an official range of 359 miles. You can still buy a coupe version of the Enyaq, like the one that we have here, and this is even better when it comes to range. So the official range of the 85 model is 365 miles, which isn't the longest that you can get from an electric SUV, but it is still very impressive. The lineup still kicks off with the 60 model, but now it's got a slightly bigger battery than before. So the usable capacity is 59 kilowatt hours, which is up from 58 kilowatt hours in the previous version of this car. And it means the official range is 268 miles for the cheapest version of the Enyaq. But remember, you still can't get that entry-level model with the coupe version of this car. The 60 model can also now accept a slightly faster charging rate than before, so it's up to 165 kilowatts, which is a decent bump up from the 120 kilowatts it could accept before. And it means in ideal conditions, the 60 should get a 10 to 80% top up in around 24 minutes. And it's still the case that the 85 and the four-wheel drive 85X accept slightly different charging speeds from one another, both of which are faster than the 60 model. But it means in both of those cars with their bigger batteries, you should be able to get a 10 to 80% top up in around 28 minutes. Oh, and by the way, one more exterior styling tweak to point out is the fact that the traditional Skoda badge on the bonnet has been replaced by the Skoda name itself. That's the same on the steering wheel inside as well. Now, in terms of other changes to point out in this interior, well, there aren't many really. In fact, it's just the ability to customize these shortcut icons on the touchscreen infotainment system, which is helpful. But apart from that, this is the same impressive interior that you had on the previous Enyaq. And the reason it's so good is because it's got a pretty slick layout, and the materials that are used inside are also very nice, and it all feels really sturdy as well. And you don't have to go for the most expensive version of the Enyaq to get a really good interior, because even if you go for entry-level loft versions, you still get leather up on the dashboard, and it has this same basic layout to things. But then if you do go up the interior trim levels, things do get a bit plusher, but even still the entry-level car is good compared to the rivals that it's up against. Now, the infotainment system itself hasn't really changed, and it's still impressive in its response time. It's also got a pretty logical layout, and you get Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as standard. Of course, it is still a shame that you've got these touchscreen controls for the air conditioning and the fan speed. It would always be better to have separate physical ones because they're far less distracting to use while you're driving. But another area where the Enyaq is very strong inside is the storage options that are available, because you've got this big center console here with loads of different cubbies and cup holders, and you've got this whole extra section below it, as well as big carpeted door bins. This nice central armrest lifts up to reveal loads of storage below it with all these removable trays and things like that. So lots of things to like in this interior still, just like before. And also the driving position is very good. You do feel high up like you're in an SUV. There's a lot of adjustment in the wheel and in the seat, and the seats themselves are comfortable and now as standard. So even on the cheapest version of the Enyaq, you get heated seats and a heated steering wheel. Indeed, standard equipment in general has been boosted for this facelifted model. So even in the cheapest version of the Enyaq, you get all the heated bits inside, you get tri-zone climate control, adaptive cruise control, keyless entry, and an electrically powered tailgate, which you can open by wagging your foot underneath the boot. All as standard. Now, inevitably, these updates have also brought a slight price increase to the Enyaq for this facelifted model. So it means that prices start at just under £40,000 for the cheapest version of this car. That's the 60 model in SEL trim. And for the most expensive version you can buy right now, prices go up to just under £50,000. Now, compared to things like the Nissan Ariya, the VW ID4 and the Tesla Model Y, this still looks like really good value. However, the one big problem that this car has is the fact that there is one other electric SUV out there that makes this look a bit silly. And it's also a Skoda. Yes, because the Skoda Enyaq is, like the Enyaq, a fully electric SUV, and it is fantastic. In fact, the two cars share many of the same brilliant qualities, but the Enyaq is thousands of pounds cheaper. So should you just stop watching this review and go and buy an Enyaq? Well, hang on a minute, because the Enyaq does have some advantages, and we'll run through them now. Now, obviously, being a bigger car, it means that the Enyaq has a bigger boot than the Enyaq. And you can see, even in this coupe version, this boot is massive, and ultimately, it is a bit smaller than the regular SUV version of this car, which gets 585 litres. And we were able to fit 9 carry-on size suitcases into both the coupe and the regular SUV version of this car. And the Skoda Enyaq can fit 6 carry-on size suitcases into its boot, which is still an impressive number, and it does have a very good boot compared to the rivals that it's up against. But this is in another ballpark entirely. It is huge. You can see it's very long, it's very wide. You've got this great big opening here, which means it's really easy to put things in and to get them out again. And there are some handy features to point out as well, like these hooks up the top. You've got 2 storage areas either side, and it's very easy to remove these things if you've got something very wide to fit in at the front. And while it is a shame there's no front boot, you do still have some underfloor storage where you can put the charging cables. And yes, there is quite a big drop down to the boot floor, and if you fold down the rear seats, they split fold 60/40, then there is a big step up to them from the boot floor. But if you go for the transport package as an optional extra, then you get a height adjustable boot floor, which raises up the boot floor so there's not quite such a big step to those rear seats. And it also gives you some handy levers into the back to throw the rear seats down as well. So we think it's worth adding that on the options list. So overall, yes, the Enyaq is a very practical car compared to the rivals that it's up against, but the Enyaq, whether you go for the coupe or the regular SUV version, is significantly better when it comes to boot space. The Enyaq is also better than the Enyaq when it comes to rear seat space, although the difference does depend on which version of this car that you get, and we'll explain. So you can see legroom is very, very generous in this car. In fact, it is fantastic. But headroom is where there is a big difference between the regular SUV version of this car and this coupe version that we have here. And because of that swooping roofline towards the back, it means that in this car, you do lose quite a bit of headroom compared to the regular SUV. And I am 177 centimetres tall, sitting behind my driving position. If I sit up straight with my head on the headrest, then I am just touching the roof lining at the back here, which isn't great. But that isn't the case in the regular SUV version of the Enyaq. And that car really is amazingly spacious in the rear seats. And it's difficult to find another electric SUV that offers any more space than that, especially for the money. So this coupe version isn't quite as impressive, but it is still very open and spacious and practical in these rear seats. And there's quite a few handy features to point out as well, like these phone pockets on the backs of the front seats here. You also get 2 USB-C chargers in the back here, which is now standard after this facelifted model. And you can have some blinds in the back if you go for edition trim and above, that is. Plus, there's a ski hatch, which gives you easy access to the boot or helps you put very long items in from the boot. And you can also fold this out to reveal 2 cup holders in the back here if no one's sat there. And if you are sat in this middle seat, then it is raised up more compared to the outer 2. And so headroom is even more restricted in this coupe version, but you do at least have a flat floor down here. There's also Isofix mounts on the outer 2 rear seats. So overall, if you are very focused on having a extremely practical rear seat area in your electric SUV, then you'll definitely want to go for the SUV version of the Enyaq rather than this coupe. But even still, both versions are very practical in the back, just like before. So there is a difference between the Enyaq and the Enyaq when it comes to practicality. Is there on the road? Well, to be honest, not really. The two cars share the same batteries and electric motor, so range, performance is very, very similar between the two cars. And that isn't a problem really, because they're both fantastic on the road. And with the facelift, the Enyaq hasn't really changed anything about the way that it drives, and there's no huge updates to it mechanically, so it's still as good as it was before. And that means that it's still among one of the more comfortable electric SUVs that you can buy. The ride is better on the motorway at faster speeds, where it's really, really smooth. At lower speeds, it can thud over road imperfections, feel a little bit more unsettled, but still, for the most part, this is a really, really comfortable car. You can spend extra money to get some adaptive suspension setups, and while ultimately that does make the ride even better, it's not to a huge degree, and really, we'd sooner save the money, to be honest. In terms of handling, this is also great. The steering's nice, and it's got a really tight turning circle for something this big, so it's so easy to drive this smoothly, whether you're in town or on the motorway or anywhere really. This is just a nice thing to be in, particularly because it's so quiet in here as well. It's very calm and peaceful at the wheel. If there is an area where the Enyaq could improve though, it's definitely the brake pedal, because there's a lot of travel before anything actually happens, and other electric SUVs are easier to stop smoothly and have better brake pedals. And actually the Elrock itself doesn't have the same problem as the Enyaq, so that is a difference between the two cars on the road. But otherwise, they're both fantastic. They're comfortable, they're quiet, and generally just great to drive. So a facelift hasn't really dramatically changed the Skoda Enyaq, and this remains a fantastic electric SUV. The only problem is the Skoda Elrock might be a bit smaller, but it still offers many of the same brilliant qualities that you get with this car, but for a lot less cash. If you do need the space though, the Skoda Enyaq is a brilliant option. Thanks for watching this review. If you want to see another one, then click up there and make sure you subscribe to our channel as well. And to read lots more about the Enyaq and every other car around, click on that link to go to whatcar.com.